I mean, in Western society, we have retirement. There's a lot to be said on what happens to people once they retire. And I've seen people deteriorate, particularly people that have been very active after retirement.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what your view is. I grew up, in the Bay Area in San Francisco, but we were immigrant family. And at the head of our family, we had an older kind of matriarch who, the elderly were very visible and very active in our lives. And when I look at traditional Caucasian society, particularly in the West, like as people age, they kind of get locked away.
Yeah, so
right?
you
They get moved on.
Yeah, so I want to. So this is the thing. You just actually landed on the one. Remember that second question where I was like, I'm going to be all over the place with this freaking answer. And do I think they did it better back then than they do now? This is the one caveat where I'm like, no. Like, I think we did it better back then, or in certain other cultures, and certainly respect. So we know this. All the blue zones, first of all, there's tremendous respect for the elders, right? And all the blue zones, and this is really important for both young and old, cross-generational friendships. Hugely important. In fact, if you want to talk about peak performance aging, one of the more radical and important suggestions that you have to make to people, and we've said this numbers of different ways over the past 50 years because it's offensive to some people, but the flat out the way I like best is make replacement friends. Most people make friends in their age group. So powerful, robust social connection matters so much for successful aging. It matters so much for peak performance across the board. You actually cannot perform at your best at any age without maintaining robust social connections. It becomes much more important later in life for quality of life reasons, but it's really important at all times. The best way, by the way, to maintain those social connections is probably to drop into group flow with people. So group flow, again, here we are back at flow for a bunch of different reasons, but the social connection matters so much, and these cross-generational friendships really matter, because if you don't make replacement friends, I've got two examples. I have a friend, he's in his 90s. He was one of the brightest people alive in the 20th century, considered one of the great minds of the 20th century. Every single friend he had from the 20th century is dead. He's the last one left. And what's weird is he comes out of a particular, there were a group of thinkers that came up in the 60s and 70s that, unlike anybody else, and he was part of that group. So literally, like, anybody who thought like him, they're gone. One of the reasons I'm friends with him is because I know about these group of thinkers from the 60s and 70s. I'm fascinated by their ideas because they're sort of so neat and unusual, but it's really strange. I'll call him up and I'll be like, oh my God, it's so good to hear your voice, Steven. I haven't talked to anybody in a month. And he's not actually kidding, right? We do some hospice work with dogs. We run a hospice care sanctuary with dogs, but we also sometimes take our old dogs to meet older humans. We did this yesterday. My wife and I did this yesterday. We were doing like a hospice call with dogs. And, my wife and I go into these situations with the awareness that there's a good chance that the person we're sitting across from were the only people they talk to all week, which is wild, right? Really, really wild. Robust social connection matters so much for healthy aging.